You're watching QTV with the news. My name is Diana Sumbwe. We take a look at stories making headlines. Finance Minister Margaret Mwanakatwe has emphasized that measures announced in the 2019 national budget are meant to balance the books. Civil society organizations have accused government of increasingly becoming authoritarian, and government has been advised against curtailing the enjoyment of academic freedom in the country. And now the news in detail. Tax and audit advisory firm Deloitte has linked the introduction of sales tax by government to the idiomatic expression of throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Deloitte Associate Director for Tax Malcolm Jala says the introduction of sales tax by government has eliminated something good while trying to get rid of something bad. Mr. Jala says even within the value-added tax VAT system, which government has abolished in preference to the sales tax, there were mechanisms that could have been employed to restrict refunds. Speaking during a Deloitte post-budget breakfast in Lusaka, Mr. Jala said the mining sector, for instance, government could have used the first schedule and exempt the export of copper minerals. Mr. Jala said such a measure could have achieved the same effects government wants to accomplish with the sales tax without necessarily affecting other players in the economy. He said given how the sales tax works, the potential challenge that should be anticipated will be managing the build-up of the build-up of tax on tax. Mr. Jala says the Zambia Revenue Authority ZRA will have to come up with an elaborate exemption mechanism for resellers.
But how do you manage the build-up of tax on tax? So the ZRA will have to come up with a quite elaborate exemption mechanism for resellers. So for instance, if I'm a raw material supplier, I'll supply to manufacturers. Those are likely going to be registered and exempt so that you don't charge them the VAT. But the sales tax, I said I'm a VAT baby. But the raw material supplier can also supply to a final customer, and then they would have to charge the sales tax. So the whole exemption mechanism and how this is going to work has to be thought out very, very carefully so that we don't cause inflation by tax, because then ultimately that tax on tax build-up will be passed on to the final consumer. Same thing with the manufacturers. They can sell finished or semi-finished products to the end customer. They sell to the wholesalers. The wholesalers can still sell to the customers, and the retailers sell to the final customer.
But Finance Minister Margaret Mwanakatwe, who was the chief guest at the breakfast, has emphasized that measures announced in the 2019 national budget are meant to balance the books. Mrs. Mwanakatwe says this is why the budget has been viewed to be tough. She states that in balancing the books, on the other hand, what government is seeking to safeguard is social protection, owing to the many inequalities in the country.
The budget is doing a very simple thing. It's balancing the books. And that's why it was tough. In balancing the books, where do you get your revenue? And to me, there are areas that we should be collecting anyway. We're entitled to that money. We're not collecting. Let's do it. Let's collect it. Let's pay our ground rent. Let's pay our simple things. Let's pay our VAT. Let's pay our income tax. Pay the simple things that we should pay for. And then, of course, there are the new things that we have introduced. But in doing that, what are we safeguarding? This budget is truly and meaningfully ensuring that we are protecting the social aspect of it, the vulnerable. So we've had to find the money to protect the vulnerable. In many areas, increase it, because the inequalities are many, and we need to protect them. So you see, even social cash transfer, we said, let's go up. Numbers, let's go up to 700,000 from where we are. So we are protecting them. It is important that as we move through a difficult time, economically, we protect social safety nets in terms of support to the vulnerable, and in terms of ensuring that the infrastructure is available. The budget.
National Restoration Party NARA President Elias Chipimo says the 2019 national budget spells out hard times ahead for citizens. Mr. Chipimo says Zambians should therefore brace themselves for more challenges. In an interview with Q News, Mr. Chipimo says the 2019 national budget does not offer anything new from what has been presented in the previous budgets. Mr. Chipimo states that the abolition of the value-added tax, VAT, and replacing it with sales tax entails that the cost of commodities will go up. He has further noted that the 2019 national budget contains nothing for the unemployed. Mr. Chipimo adds that the 2019 national budget does not give hope to those paying taxes through pay-as-you-earn. Mr. Chipimo has since described the 2019 national budget as lackluster.
In many respects, it's quite lackluster, and it's focused on tightening the process by which this government will collect revenue. And they've decided to abolish value-added tax. That will come through the debate in Parliament and will probably be implemented, if it succeeds, around the middle of the year, if not sooner. And what it's going to mean is that costs are going to go up for ordinary Zambians, because with value-added tax, if you are manufacturing and you are charged VAT on the goods that you are procuring in order to manufacture, you could reclaim that VAT. Now you won't be able to reclaim it, which means your cost of doing business is going up, which means you will pass that cost on to the consumer. The second thing is that really there's nothing in this budget for the young people who are coming onto the job market and those who are unemployed and waiting for some opportunity. There's also nothing in this budget for those who are paying very high taxes as PAYE, and on top of that they're paying all of these other taxes like VAT, which you can't claim back, and we've got all these user fees that are being imposed because institutions are not able to get the revenue they need from the government. So it's going to be a very tough year going forward for the ordinary Zambian. Expect more challenges, more hardships. I think that the poor are going to suffer a little bit more than they already have. We're not going to see the numbers of the rural poor reducing from the 70+% that is there. So it's a very concerning thing that the statements that are made about managing public expenditure in this particular budget presentation are no different from the statements that were made by Mr. Mtati and no different from the statements that were made by Mr. Chikwanda. In many
Four society organizations have accused the Patriotic Front government of increasingly becoming authoritarian following the recent deportation of Kenyan lawyer and academician Professor Patrick Lumumba. The four organizations are the Non-Government Gender Organization Coordinating Council NGOCC, Action Aid Zambia, Alliance for Community Action, Caritas Zambia, and Zambia Council for Social Development. In a statement issued on behalf of the four organizations, NGOCC Board Chairperson Sarah Longwe said they find it extremely hard to believe that Professor Lumumba posed a security threat to the country as suggested by government. Ms. Longwe says the topic, Africa in the Age of Chinese Influence and Global GEO Dynamics, Professor Lumumba was to speak on, could not be any stretch of imagination raise any security concerns. She said by its conduct, the government is demonstrating high levels of intolerance to intellectualism and dissent, considering the worrying trend of deportations that the country has made over the past year, which include South African Opposition Democratic Alliance leader Maimusi Maimine in May 2017, performer Zodwa Wabantu in March 2018, and Zimbabwean opposition leader asylum seeker Tendai Biti in August 2018. Ms. Longwe says the civil society organizations feels the idea that a foreigner expressing views that the government may not agree with is a matter of national sovereignty and is ridiculous. She adds that it's undemocratic, as in a democracy the citizens should have access to any ideas that seek to inform them of current state of affairs. She states that Zambia is fast becoming a laughingstock internationally because of such undemocratic tendencies. And Mrs. Longwe says as civil society organizations, they also remain deeply concerned at the revelations that certain donor countries have frozen aid to Zambia as a result of the misappropriation of funds intended for the poorest and most vulnerable citizens under the social cash transfer scheme. She says the misappropriation of funds in this case is even more deplorable, as it is literally stealing food from the mouths of the weakest and poorest in society, where poverty often bears a female face. Ms. Longwe says it's shameful that such acts of depriving the poor by a few privileged can occur in a Christian nation. She adds that they are also concerned that it appears the full extent of corruption has yet to be revealed. She stresses that the combination of mounting debt and corruption is a deadly combination for a lot of Zambians who will be denied food, decent health care, education and sanitation as a result. Development activist Canisius Banda has advised government against curtailing the enjoyment of academic freedom in the country. Dr. Banda says just like freedom of expression, the proliferation of research and academic freedom are fundamental to the well-being of human beings. In an interview with QTV News, Dr. Banda says there is need, therefore, to promote the culture of thinking and research in Zambia. Dr. Banda states that it is only when people begin to think can they create a Zambia they aspire for. He says his appeal to President Edgar Lungu and his government is that they exhibit tolerance and allow people to think and enjoy academic freedom. Dr. Banda says he personally does not see any justification in the reasons government has given for the deportation of renowned Kenyan academician Patrick Lumumba. He feels Professor Lumumba should have been allowed to exercise his academic freedom in Zambia, especially that he is a Pan-Africanist.
So we appeal to the president to be alert. He must be alert because, look, I mean, not every person that comes to Zambia is a danger here. And let us be tolerant. Let us allow people in. Let people speak. Look, we are going to remain peaceful and united if we allow people the freedoms that God gave them. So we might be sending away saviors. So let's watch it. Some of these people, let them come. Look, let them come. Musi my money. Look, let him come and visit Hichilema if he wants, and he goes back. There's no story there, you know. Professor Lumumba, let him come and officiate at the graduation ceremony, and I look forward to the day when Lumumba will be invited back to Zambia, and President Lungu will shake hands with him as a scholar, as an African who has been reading and is encouraging other Africans to read. Well, he might say something offensive to one country or another. That's the nature of speech. You know, let people speak, and it's only after they've spoken that you will be able to say, okay, iwesuna kambe bwino. So,
Minister of Water Development, Sanitation and Environmental Protection Permanent Secretary Dr. Eddie Chomba says provision of sanitation services in Zambia still remains a challenge. In a speech read on his behalf by Director of Water and Sanitation Oswald Katoka, Dr. Chomba says statistics indicate that Zambia has sanitation coverage of 21%, with urban areas at 39% and rural areas at 19%. Dr. Chomba says it is for this reason that the country remains committed to attaining universal access to clean and safe water supply and adequate sanitation for all by 2030 as set out in the ministry's vision and the 7th National Development Plan. He adds that government has prioritized the provision of clean and safe water and adequate sanitation for all the Zambian people. We have more in the following report.
Clean drinking water, good hygiene and sanitation play an important part in maintaining good health. Contaminated water causes many waterborne diseases such as diarrhea and also serves as a carrier for vectors such as mosquitoes, spreading epidemics. To help sort out this problem, SNV Netherlands Development Organization is hosting a learning event in partnership with Chambishi and Lukanga Commercial Utilities and 5 local authorities, namely Kabwe, Kasama, Mbala, Mpulungu, and Nakonde, called the Urban Sanitation and Hygiene for Health Development Workshop in Lusaka. Ministry of Water Development, Sanitation and Environmental Protection Permanent Secretary Dr. Ed Chomba, in a speech read on his behalf by Director of Water and Sanitation Oswald Katuka, says government has prioritized the provision of clean and safe water and adequate sanitation for all.
My government has made significant water policy reforms, and these have included the creation of the Ministry of Water Development, Sanitation and Environmental Protection as the lead ministry to propagate and coordinate all water sector policy matters and program implementation in our country. This institutional realignment is my government's realization of the important role that the water sector plays in the developmental agenda of our country, Zambia.
And SNV Netherlands country director Marjon Tourisma says diarrhea is one of the top 10 causes of death in Zambia, in particular affecting children under 5 years. She says investment in water and sanitation will therefore also contribute to the reduction of the stunting rates in Zambia.
The national and international development organizations, knowledge institutes, and low-income communities. The learning event comes at a time when we have just completed an intensive baseline exercise covering residential areas, schools, and health facilities in 5 towns. This baseline has brought out priority areas to be addressed, like open education, which is number 1, low hand washing practices, unsafe menstrual hygiene management practices at all levels, unsafe solid waste management.
Lukanga Water and Sewerage Company Managing Director Mushani Kapusana is thankful to SNV Netherlands for organizing the workshop, which he says will benefit many people and bring development to the country.
Lukanga Water is one of the water utilities in Zambia that has the lowest sanitation coverage, estimated at 43% for the 8 towns that we cover in the central part of Zambia. Lukanga Water is therefore in a hurry to improve sanitation coverage and indeed to contribute to improve health and hygiene in Central Province and Zambia as a whole.
The conference has brought together important actors within and outside Zambia, such as Bangladesh, Indonesia, Kenya, Nepal, Netherlands, and Tanzania, among others. The Urban Sanitation and Hygiene for Health is being held under the theme Informed Choice in Urban Sanitation Investments and will be closing on 4th October 2018. Martha Katambi, reporting for QTV News in Lusaka.
General Education Minister David Mawumba says the 2019 national budget the proposed 2019 national budget focuses on reforming and transforming key components in the education system. Mr. Mawumba cited industrialization as one key component that the budget will help to transform by supporting the local production and purchase of school items such as uniforms, linen, and furniture. The minister told Zanis in an interview that the recapitalization of the Zambia Education and Publishing Houses, ZEPH, is another milestone in ensuring that production of books for pupils is localized. Mr. Mawumba further said the budget will promote the construction of new secondary schools and upgrading of some primary institutions. He explained that the move will help to cushion on the demand for secondary education because there are more primary than secondary schools in the country. The Minister of Finance, Margaret Mwanakatwe, presented the 86.8 billion kwacha 2019 national budget under the theme Delivering Fiscal Consolidation for Sustainable and Inclusive Growth. She proposed to spend 13.3 billion kwacha in 2019, which translates into 15.3% of the budget allocation on education, skills training and development. The ruling Patriotic Front says critics claiming that the 2019 national budget is weak are not being sincere. Patriotic Front Media Director Sunday Chanda says the ruling party is however not surprised, as it is fully aware that critics such as opposition political parties oppose anything without paying attention to detail. Mr. Chanda says contrary to assertions by critics, the 2019 national budget is pragmatic. In an interview with Q News, Mr. Chanda says this is given the measures that have been introduced in the budget, which well-meaning people have come to applaud. He has cited the abolishment and replacement of the value-added tax VAT with a sales tax as one key change the Patriotic Front is happy with in the announced national budget. He says his party has been against any business or firm relying on VAT refunds as working capital. Mr. Chanda notes that the ruling Patriotic Front also welcomes the introduction of incentives in the budget to support value addition to copper. He states that such incentives will bring about job creation in the country.
We know very well that a sales tax for individuals will be like VAT. It will be non-refundable. And for companies, there will be no more VAT refund. And with this action, like I've already said, government is saving over $1 billion. And again, one of the other fundamental changes that we saw with this budget is the reintroduction of the windfall tax. Now, Zambians would remember the windfall tax with late President Levi Mwanawasa. And this has indirectly been introduced with the as a mineral royalty tax. Every Zambian who's concerned about the mineral wealth in this country has been concerned that the country has not been reaping as much as it should from its mineral wealth. And we have seen that even when copper prices rise on the international market, the country does not get any benefits whatsoever. And there's been great need to relook at this particular piece of tax legislation and ensure that the country reaps the benefits from its mineral wealth. We know
Livingstone's Harry Mwanga Nkumbula International Airport has been awarded the 2018 Best Airport in the Africa category of 10,000 and 20,000 air traffic management by Airports Council International ACI Africa. Zambia Airports Corporation Limited Communications and Brand Manager Mwembe Sikalulu says the airport was chosen as winner following an extensive evaluation process from a number of entries received by ACI Africa in the category. Ms. Sikaulu says despite facing fierce competition, Harry Mwanga Nkumbula International Airport's infrastructure and processes were rated to be the best in Africa within its category. She adds that the award will be presented at the prestigious ACI Africa Conference and Annual General Assembly, which will take place from 14th to 17th October 2018 in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. Zambia Railways Limited ZRL is likely to fail to meet most of the set goals in its 2014-2018 strategic plan. In its 2014-2018 strategic plan, ZRL aims to, among other goals, increase train speeds to an average of 70 kilometers per hour and increase passenger traffic to 400,000 people per year by 2015. But ZRL board chairperson Lubinda Linyama has told QTV News in an interview that the speed of the trains is normally determined by the stability of the rail track. Mr. Linyama says the railway company is therefore awaiting a positioning from government as it is already in negotiations with several partners to do a complete revitalization and rehabilitation of the entire track. He says it is only when the track is stable can the railway company achieve the speed with which it wants its trains to be moving at in the next 5 years. Asked whether Zambia Railways Limited has achieved its goal to increase passenger traffic to 400,000 people per year, Mr. Linyama said the passenger side of its business is more of a social obligation. Mr. Linyama states that the company's intention, on the other hand, is to increase capacity in order to give the people an alternative means of transport. He said to this effect, Zambia Railways Limited will be procuring more locomotives and coaches.
If you look at the passenger side of our business, it's more or less like a social obligation that we have to the people of Zambia. But our intention is to increase capacity in order to move people, to give them alternative means of transport as passengers. So we intend to move, to acquire more passenger equipment in terms of locomotives and coaches, That is in our strategic plan. It's a gradual implemented kind of approach. We'll move in and look at ratios in terms of proportions of increment once the rolling stock is increased. So once the rolling stock levels are increased and the SI is being implemented, we look at increasing the revenue of the company. Then we can actually respond properly to the passenger side of the business. If you look at
Zambia Railways Limited was given a total sum of 120 million United States dollars from the 750 million United States dollars Eurobond to, among other things, rehabilitate rail tracks and infrastructure. Public-Private Drivers Association of Zambia PPDAZ President Josiah Majuru has encouraged bus drivers to seriously consider putting God first in their operations and always ensure they start their journey with prayer. Mr. Majuru tells Q News that some of the fatal road traffic accidents that have been recorded in the country have some evil forces behind them. He says it is for this reason that the transport sector players will be conducting prayers every now and then, especially in the last 3 months of the year when there is an increase in road traffic accidents. He says this will also encourage drivers to appreciate the benefits of serious prayers before every journey they make. And Mr. Majuru has called on the police to enhance patrols and put in measures to curb traffic accidents in the last 3 months of the year, all through to January next year. He has further urged commuters to always confront and report unruly and careless drivers.
And my appeal to the drivers and operators is that let's conduct our business in a manner that will not continue claiming lives. Let's also ensure that each time we are departing from point A to point B, at least there should be somebody to offer a prayer in the bus. That way we shall remain protected by God, and also we shall be focused and be united as we drive. In an event where somebody is not driving well, my appeal to the commuters is that don't hesitate. Report such a person, confront such a person, so that we together help to curb these accidents. Yes, some accidents are due to mechanical faults, others are due to negligence, and others, there's an evil force behind some of the accidents. That's why, as sector associations, we came together on Saturday and we had prayers, and we shall continue so that at least we have light in what we do in transport as we conduct our business.
Kapoche Member of Parliament Charles Banda has reaffirmed his commitment to fulfilling the promises he made to the people of Kapoche during the 2016 general election on developing the area. Mr. Banda says 26 boreholes are earmarked to be sunk in the areas by the council, of which 11 have already been sunk. The lawmaker says using his own resources, he has sunk 7 boreholes this year as a way of complementing the council's efforts in the provision of safe water to the residents. Mr. Banda says the area is also seeing the upgrading of roads such as the 28-kilometer Sinda to Nyanje Road, which has since been completed, and the road from Seketwe leading to Mtandaza area. He adds that health facilities are also being upgraded, citing the Chikalaba Clinic, whose upgrade is nearing completion. Mr. Banda, who is also Tourism and Arts Minister, further states that bridges have not been left out in the developmental agenda.
We are doing everything very, very possible to ensure that we will fulfill on the promises that we gave to the people during the campaigns. I'm happy that in Kapoche, where I am coming from, we are already addressing some of the issues which the people we are crying about. For instance, if you talk about clean and safe drinking water, we have started sinking boreholes. Through the council, we have been given 26 boreholes so far for this year, out of which about 11 of them have already been sunk. But on top of that, I want also you to know that I have personally, using my own resources, sunk 7 boreholes to complement the 26 which were given to us by government through the council. And let me also inform you that this coming weekend, I'm going back there, I'm sinking 4 more from my own resources, so that I will complement the efforts of government. But apart from that, we've been working on roads. Roads is a very big issue in the constituency. We've got so many roads that need to be attended to, but about 2 of them have already been done, like the Sinda to Nyanji Road, which had this.
Serenja Member of Parliament Maxwell Kabanda says his constituency has received the 2018 Constituency Development Fund, CDF. Mr. Kabanda says his constituency's office is currently trying to harmonize the 2018 and 2017 CDF allocations. He has told Q News that this is in order that it sees how it will deliver development through the various community projects being undertaken in the constituency. Mr. Kabanda says the idea is to attain value for the money government has released. To end the news, we take a look at stories making headlines once again. Finance Minister Margaret Mwanakatwe has emphasized that measures announced in the 2019 national budget are meant to balance the books. Civil society organizations have accused government of increasingly becoming authoritarian, and government has been advised against curtailing the enjoyment of academic freedom in the country. On that note, we come to the end of the news. From me, Diana Sumbwe. Thank you for watching.